investors are paying increased attention to the fiscal time bomb that could explode Japan's $4.9 trillion economy. And some are beginning to wonder whether Japan might be the next Greece. Bloomberg columnist Willie Pesek is writing on that today. Willie, how likely is it that we'll be talking about Japan the same way we've been talking about Greece and its effects on the global economy?
Well, it is quite of a strange turn of affairs. But, Mike, if you remember back 10, 12 years ago, when you and I traveled back and forth from Washington to Japan, did you think that in 2010 we'd still be talking about deflation in Japan? I sure didn't. And here we are. And in many ways, I think that investors are looking at the extent to which Japan's debt to GDP ratio is 200%. It's unthinkable. Is that sustainable? They're beginning to wonder. Hedge funds are circling. And it's an open question as to whether 5 or 10 years from now, Japan will be able to pay its debts.
Yeah, David Einhorn, who made a lot of money betting that Lehman Brothers would collapse, is starting to bet that Japan will.
And he's very, very sure about Japan defaulting at some point. We'll see what happens. I mean, look, Japan's a very wealthy country. 96% of JGBs are held domestically. Japan has a current account surplus. Japan is not Greece. But I do think Japan has gotten to a point now where investors are saying this is unsustainable. Japan does need to have some kind of change of course, some kind of attempt to reduce its budget deficit. And, the pressure's on.
Well, we just got a new government in Japan. The change of course isn't accompanying that?
Not at all. In fact, the new government is stuck on scandals, just like the old government. They're so focused on financing scandals and holding their jobs, they're not focusing on the economy, which is in part why you're seeing this kind of battle between the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Japan right now. The MOF wants the BOJ to do more to end deflation. The BOJ is pointing the finger back at the MOF, saying, you guys have to do your part. So this kind of blame game we're seeing is all about the political paralysis we have here in Tokyo.
Yeah, you raise an interesting point in your column today. Governor Masaaki, this doesn't happen, the Bank of Japan criticizing the government.
It is pretty shocking. I mean, I can't remember it ever happening, but it had to be said. I mean, I think the BOJ is right about this. The government cannot continue to borrow and borrow and borrow. Japan's debt right now is almost double the size of the economy. When we look at the U.S. and say the U.S. is borrowing too much, Obama's borrowing too much, the U.S. is nothing compared to Japan in terms of the debt to GDP ratio.
All right, Willie, we're going to continue to follow Japan. Hopefully it will not be Greece, but you'll be back on regularly to tell us
Thanks, Mike.
whether it's going down that road. Willie Pesek in Tokyo, thanks for being with us.